A couple of weeks ago, I headed down to Sydney. I saw some of the sights, and I also went to the Sydney Knife Show and met up with a bunch of mates. While I was down that way, I stayed with Corin for a week and hung out in his workshop. I decided at the last minute to make a simple project and film it, and that will be a brass whistle. I didn't have my camera with me, so the whole thing was shot on my phone. It's a bit different to my usual videos, but hopefully you still enjoy it. I've got a free run of the place, so let's get started. And first I'll make a template out of paper, and that's mainly to get an idea of what size I think the whistle should be. I'm happy with that, so next I'll mark it out again onto some 1.2mm thick brass. And for anyone that doesn't know Corin, we recently made kayaks together in my workshop, and we've made a few projects together now over the last couple of years. To refine the shape, I'll use Corin's die filer. I've always wanted to try one of these out, and it is on my list of projects to make, but mine would be much smaller and sit on a bench top. I could have easily done this by hand, but for some tasks where you may need the sides of a taller project to stay square with the bottom, this would be a great tool to have. Next I need to fold over the sides of the whistle, but first I'll anneal the brass. I'll do that by heating it to a dull red and then quenching it in water. This will soften the brass and allow it to bend crisply without any cracking. The first bend came out really nice, but now I can't put it in the vise to make the second bend, so I need to find a scrap of something to form that one around. It's starting to look somewhat like a whistle, but I need to remove a bit more material, and this is where the slot will be on top of the whistle, and I realise that it needs to be moved forward slightly. I'm sure somebody will complain about me scribing with the calipers, but it's only brass and it doesn't actually matter because the calipers aren't mine anyway. I've decided to file in a small step for the next piece to fit into, and that will be just a strip of brass that gets wrapped around the main body. I've cut that piece off camera and I'm annealing it again, ready to bend into shape. I found a bar the same size as the round section of the whistle, and I'll use that to form the brass around. I'm not sure how big the slot in the top needs to be, so I'll file a tab on the outside piece, and that's to fit inside the whistle, and then I'll have plenty of material to play with. And also I may be able to angle that tab down to make adjustments to the sound of the whistle. I left far too much on that tab, so I filed that down. Next I'll finish bending and shaping the outside piece after annealing it again. I'm holding the pieces together in position while marking where the next bend needs to be. I'm not totally convinced that the whistle is going to work, but it's a fun project to try anyway. All I've done is look at other brass whistles and worked from that, but hopefully with some adjustments here and there, we can actually get it to whistle. It looks pretty good, it just needs a bit more refining, taking out a slight twist and closing up the gaps as best as I can. I'm not sure if this is the best idea, but to try and test it, I'm gluing it together and hopefully sealing up all the gaps. I'm pretty sure for this to work, it really does need sealing up well. Well, that was disappointing, and I wasn't confident, but I was hoping that it would work. So next I filed out the slot a bit bigger, and that didn't help either. So instead I made an internal piece, which I made off camera, and that will hopefully control the airflow better. I do think, though, that the reason it isn't working is there's still gaps in it, so I think we'll go ahead now, clean it up, solder it together, and keep our fingers crossed that it works then. After fluxing it, we'll solder the internal piece first and then keep that clamped down and solder the outside piece afterwards. In my last video I released my handmade Kumiko starter kits, and I thought I'd let you know that there's still a few available if you want to grab one. With your favourite sharp chisel and one of my Kumiko starter kits, you'll have everything you need to craft your first piece of Kumiko. The kit includes 2 handmade beechwood Kumiko jigs, the 16 basswood strips that you need to complete a cool 6x6 inch Kumiko project, and a PDF download you can print off to lay out your build. So while that's still available, simply click the link in the description, pick up one of my starter kits, and you too can begin the art of Kumiko. And as always, thanks for your support. As soon as the first piece is soldered, we put it straight into the pickle solution to help dissolve any scale. Now to solder the next piece, and then we can see if it actually works. For anyone that's worried, I did thoroughly wash off the pickle solution first. That's not too bad at all. It still needs some refining by adjusting the slots, but I'm just happy that it works. Now I'll grind down the sides and clean it up a bit. Next we'll make a small knob that gets fixed to the back of the whistle, and that's for attaching a lanyard or a chain. Before turning down the knob, we'll drill a hole through the rod for a brass ring to go through, and that's where a lanyard would be attached. Corin is turning the bar down first, and then he'll start to shape it.
Here we go.
Before it gets parted off, we need a pin left on, and that will get a thread cut on it to attach it to the back of the whistle. The thread will be very tiny, it's an M2 thread, and we are going to solder the knob onto the whistle, so the threading isn't essential, but it will hold it in place while we're soldering. The main reason for threading it is that I wanted to try out Corin's awesome tapping machine. First I'll drill a hole ready for tapping on the back of the whistle, and I get to use this high-speed drill, which is also a fabulous machine. Corin's workshop is a real Aladdin's cave with cool machines and tools and just cool stuff everywhere you look. I didn't get a practice run, this is my very first try with the tapping machine. I lift the workpiece up into the tap, and when the thread is cut I lower it back down and it automatically reverses the chuck. It may seem like magic, but it's just a really cool mechanism inside. We took the sides off and did a few test threads to show you how it works and let you figure out what's going on. We shortened the threaded section so it sits flush with the inside of the whistle, and then we soldered it on. Now we just need a ring for attaching a lanyard.
I'll make it look easy.
Corin is springing the two ends past each other, so when they're brought back to meet, it leaves a tight joint. Next, we place a small piece of flattened solder between the joint and then solder it together. It was awesome to work in Corin's workshop, but we ran out of time to finish the whistle as we were both heading down to Melbourne for a folding knife course with Master Smith Sean McIntyre. I filmed that too using my phone again, and all our knives turned out stunning, so let me know if that's something you'd like to see. Anyway, I brought the whistle home with me and finished it in my workshop. The first thing I need to do is enlarge the slot and hopefully get it sounding even better. That really has made a big difference. Next I'll file the sides a little, just like how the old brass whistles were. I'm not sure if this is just for looks or whether it changes the sound, and it may do by creating more turbulence. I'm not sure how accurate this is, but I have an app on my phone to measure sound level, so I'll check how loud the whistle is from a few meters away. It's over 100 decibels every time. I'm not sure what that actually tells me, but anyway, it's sounding pretty good. Now I need to start finishing it, and first I'll round over the corners using a 240 grit slack belt. Next I'll etch a design onto it, but first I need to prepare it by sanding it with 180 grit sandpaper. I'll use a vinyl resist and then acid etch the design into the brass. The design was as small as I could get it with the vinyl cutter, and because of that there were a couple of pieces missing, but they were easy enough to touch up. For the etch I'm using ammonium persulfate, which I recently used on my brass padlock, and I reckon it works fantastic. It gets mixed with 1 part to 5 parts water, and that needs to be kept at around 70 degrees C. I left it in there for about 45 minutes or so, and I'm giving it a nudge every few minutes just to agitate the solution and shake away the etch particles. That worked great again, and I reckon it's the best method for etching brass, or it's the best method I've tried anyway. I've decided to blacken the design, and to do that I'll use super glue. I've only ever used that with steel. I've never tried it with brass before, but I did read somewhere that it should work. That worked very well. It just needs sanding back to reveal the text, and then I can sand and buff the whole thing to a finish. As the whistle is a P whistle, the last thing that it needs is the P, which actually isn't a P at all, but a cork ball. The P needs to be slightly bigger than the slot, which is 6.5mm, so I'll make the ball around 8mm. I've got a scrap of cork which I'll start crudely shaping and then hopefully refine it into something fairly roundish. It's a bit crumbly, so I'm soaking it with thin CA glue to get into all the gaps and hopefully hold it together. I'm taking off the edges to get the shape started, then I have a plan to round it more using the belt grinder. I've modified a plastic cup by reducing the volume slightly with another cup and hot glue. That actually works pretty well. I did try making wooden balls this way a few years ago, but they turned out more oval than round. To speed the process up a bit more, I glued some sandpaper to the inside of the cup. I should mention that the P is to break up the sound of the whistle and give it more of a warble sound rather than a screech. It took about 15 minutes to get it down to 8mm, but it did a really good job. I can tell straight away that it's not going to work, it just went in far too easily. And as I thought it would, it wedged into the slot. I made another off camera. This one is 10mm and it only took about 5 minutes to make, but it did take a bit more of a push to get this one through the slot. I reckon I prefer the sound without the P, but anyway, it was a fun project and I'm super happy that it works at all. A big thanks to Corin for letting me hang out in his workshop. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one.